Yeah.
You sit down the front to get the information first. Not second hand.
Okay, well, I think most of you have found a seat now, and what a grand sight it is from up here to see so many beautiful faces and new faces as well. Flow Hive, we'll be finding out in a little minute how many of you actually have a Flow Hive. But I would like to welcome everyone to our very special night. We have an exciting evening ahead of us, which will inform us all about a different way of beekeeping, quite a different way. Could we have hands up of new members tonight? Lovely, welcome, wonderful, welcome to our meeting and to the world of bees. Hands up our Flow Hive owners. Oh, look at that. See, we never know these things, so that's a lot of you. That's wonderful, right? Anyone harvested any honey this season? Lucky you. Well done, thank you. Oh, all hives, not just Flow Hives. Yes, oh, well done, well done. Hills haven't done much for me. And have you all closed down your hives for the winter? Or are getting there? Getting there, yes, takes a bit of time, but this weather is really good for closing them down. No wind, nice and warm, and they don't seem too tetchy, I've found. Well, that is fantastic. How many members are here tonight? Oh, that is wonderful. Great, thank you very much. So I'm Tricia, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm up here as president tonight. Bob will have a little talk to us after I've done my little spiel before we bring Stuart in. We've reached our quorum, and we hope that you've all signed in. Is everyone signed in tonight? Yep. If you haven't, Sandra's at the back, and she can tick you off. We just have to do that for fire in case the whole place goes up. Any apologies? I have Chris King and Grant Gottlieb as apologies. Any other apologies? No? Lovely. Now, just go to this one now. We've just got to make approval of the previous minutes. Review and approve the minutes from the previous meeting, which was held on the 14th of April 2025. We would like to propose that the minutes are confirmed. Has anybody, all in favour of the minutes being confirmed? Lovely, thank you. Anyone against? All in favour? Anyone against? No? Lovely, then the minutes are carried. Thank you. What's a bee's favourite flower? This is my little joke. A begonia. I know, I always have to tell jokes when I'm up here. What do you call a bee who doesn't cost anything? Oh, all right. Yes, you're very, very, very clever. Okay. I know, they're pretty bad, aren't they? All right, well, I have done my thing, so I would like Bob to come up, if he could please. This is Bob Beer, our mentor boy who, there's nothing he doesn't know about bees. There we go, Bob.
Thank you, Trish. Good evening, folks. One of the questions that Trish didn't ask, how many visitors here tonight? Put your hands up. Who saw an advert advertising tonight and come along? Come along because you saw an advert? Good on you. So the adverts were worthwhile being popped around. Okay. I've got 4 announcements. And the first announcement is for me to inform you as members that Monica has resigned as our president. From the Education Subcommittee, also as our representative on SABIAC and the SAAA. And Monica will not be renewing her membership after the 1st of July. This came as a shock to us as a management committee, as no doubt most of you are surprised and shocked. Monica has identified personal reasons, a loss of passion and enthusiasm as the reasons for this deliberate decision. And those of us who were at the meeting in April here heard her express mixed feelings since her return from South Africa. Over this side, sweetheart. Yeah. So, yes, she came back from South Africa after having seen had celebrated her father's 96th birthday, and she realised well and truly. Let me assure you as members that as a management committee of 8, we are committed to maintain the prime functions of the society, and we will be working to ensure a positive outcome at the AGM in August. I did miss out the other paragraph here. We can but all wish her well for her future endeavours and thank her most sincerely for her contribution to this society and most of us personally. The next announcement is a lighter note. Next field day, next Saturday, 17th of May at Selgar Avenue, and we will be preparing the hives to go into winter. I've already had a word to Adrian. There might be, because of the variation of the hives, we might have 3 different options going into winter, so it'll be a good day to be there. 1 o'clock, Selgar Avenue. And next month, this general meeting here, next month, Sophie Thompson will be our guest speaker. And the last announcement I have to make is that at our management committee meeting on the 1st of May, the management committee accepted the motion to terminate the lease on Ashton Community Complex, taking effect as at the 31st of July. So there's a lot of equipment and a lot of gear to be moved. But members will be advised of the equipment available for sale in the time prior to the June general meeting, after which offers of interest will be accepted and considered. Trish, where are you?
Yeah,
You can introduce Stu.
I can. Lovely. Thank you. Come up there again. Thank you.
Yes, so you'll have to put up with me again and my jokes.
Oh no.
I'm afraid so. Yes. Now, the reason why we're really here tonight, not only for Amanda's Honey Joys, but to meet Stuart Anderson. So I would now like to introduce Stuart, our guest for tonight, the co-inventor of the Flow Hive. Stuart and his son Cedar spent many hours puzzling over how they could get their honey out of their hives without opening it. After 10 years, they had a breakthrough and the Flow Hive was born. So I would like to hand over to Stuart. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Trish.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute, Stuart.
It's coming out here.
We can see you, we just can't hear you yet. Wait a minute, Stuart. Sorry. boys have tested this and tested it. It's always the night, isn't it, that you go to use it.
Yeah, how's that going now? I don't know if I know any more bee jokes, but I was thinking of who are the bees, who's the bee's favourite musician? And yes. Anyway, how's the sound going?
Good, fantastic. We're good.
We're good?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Trish, again, and hi everyone. It is wonderful to speak with you. I wish I was there in person, and it is lovely to get around and get actually to bee clubs and mingle and so on. So, yeah, maybe next time we'll see how we go. I've got the questions that you've asked for this talk, and I'm not sure what you'd like me to talk about generally. I can, of course, talk about the flow gear, the flow frames and the flow hive, and just behind me I've got a couple of boxes set up so that I can demonstrate the superlifter if you like, or talk to its history as well. So, I don't know, a brief history was what Trish mentioned. 20 years ago, my son and I started looking at ways to get honey out of a beehive without opening it. This was his push and his drive. And I was just enjoying going along for the ride really in those days, having fun, having ideas in the air. But he was very, very keen, and some of the ideas we dreamed up, he made. And then I was a bit stunned by all that. And anyway, we put them in the hive and they all failed year after year, you know, little idea after little idea. We had frames, the comb being pulled apart like this with the honey falling down there. We hadn't figured out how to catch it, but at least can we do that? But even then, I think you know when you shake a frame full of honey to see if it's ripe, if it's honey, it'll stay there, and that's what happened with some of our early prototypes. The honey just stayed in each little part of the frame, didn't drop down. Anyway, we had years and years of failures, but from my point of view as a dad, you know, it was fun, you know, and so yeah, finally, I say we, I mean, it happened to be me, but you know, it could have been either of us. Came up with the idea of not pulling the frames apart like that, or using hot nichrome wire, or all sorts of other ideas, squishing them. I thought about, could the cells be split vertically? And straight away you could see that when you do that, you create a stream of honey. And one of the things about honey, it's like other fluids, it will pull it, it will sort of follow itself. You know how a dribble of water will follow a wet line, and honey will also pull like that. So as soon as you create a column of honey, it will sort of self-drain. It won't be stuck like in a cell. Anyway, so there was so much to this story, but the reason it partly got so big is we decided to go for crowdfunding, which was a relatively new thing 10 years ago. We'd heard about it, but Seda knew a bit more about it than me, but both of us started studying it, and I pledged, you know, on someone's new special earphones, and we also put some money, you know, pledged some money towards a sort of underwater scuba thing that could work if you were a snorkeler. And anyway, some of them came out, some of them didn't, but we got the hang of how crowdfunding worked and started designing our own campaign. And in March, 10 years ago, we launched the flow frames. Because by then we'd done a couple of years of testing with beekeepers around the world. Unfortunately, we had the USA, Canada, Australia, of course, New Zealand, and our attempts in the UK and so on. There was goodwill all around. It's just for one reason or another, things didn't happen there. Anyway, we'd done all of that testing and we were ready to launch. We launched with the crowdfunding, and to our surprise, it just took off like almost no other crowdfunding campaign. And suddenly, from really, both of us had stopped working at that stage, from having not much money at all, we suddenly had, well, in theory, you had millions. It doesn't quite work like that, but we did, in order so that we could get Australian factories making this new product, Flow Hive, and the boxes to go in it. Just a little word about those. Like, most of our focus on all that inventing time was on the flow frames themselves. And the box with that, pitched roof and so on, that was sort of an afterthought, because we thought most beekeepers were sort of tinkerer beekeepers like us, and we just want to get the frames and fit them into their own boxes, and we had all the instructions online as to how you could cut up a Langstroth box and put the frames in it. But we thought we'd better make some boxes, make a hive with the whole kit, and to our surprise that's what sold well. And when we were thinking that's what we should do, Cedar said, well, if we're going to do a hive, I'd like it to be a really good looking hive. I'd like it to look smart in a garden, look attractive. And I was going, wow, because of course I'd been brought up with half-painted, somewhat rotten, boxes that didn't look pretty at all. And it hadn't occurred to me that a beehive could look good, really. And but anyway, we did that, and that's become the classic look of the flow hive. And another reason I didn't focus too much on that is that when we were designing the flow frames, we were thinking more about the commercial sector. Now, Cedar was very small scale commercial, but we knew beekeepers that had, well, there's a local one with 300 or 400 hives, and another one further up the road, a couple of thousand hives that get moved around and chase the honey flow and so on. We were thinking if we could save them time, then our Australian honey, well, they could compete with countries where the labour is a lot cheaper. Of course, we were wrong with that. There's only been a small uptake by commercial beekeepers, and they tend to be the boutique commercial. And to our surprise and really pleasure, where it took off was in the amateur, the backyard beekeeper area, and not only that, but we seem to encourage, well, thousands and thousands of people around the world to take up beekeeping, most of whom thought, I'd like to do that one day, and suddenly our campaign was there, and with the beautiful pictures from my stepdaughter of the lovely bees and the flowers and so on, and it tipped the table for so many people. Said, we'll do it, let's go and do some beekeeping. And I'm sort of proud of that, very pleased about it. And at the same time, as the campaign went on and as we realised what was happening, there was a concern that was echoed by many experienced beekeepers. Whoa, you're making beekeeping look easy, whereas we were saying, well, the honey extraction, the honey harvesting is easy now, not necessarily the beekeeping. But we're making the whole thing look easy. People will get bees and they won't look after them, and those bees will die and spread disease. Well, of course, that's a small proportion. And of course, some of my hives have died when I've been looking after them. It happens to beekeepers, and that was well before flow. But still, we carried that concern. There were all sorts of other strange ideas in those early days, like the flow frames will promote wax moth, or will promote chalk brood, and things like that. I mean, people I think hadn't even seen it, hadn't realised that the brood box is just the same as ever. Anyway, it was such an adventure, an incredible time to develop and bring an invention to market. And the saying's true, it's 1% inspiration, and that was all that early work, inventing work, and then all the prototyping, and then the bringing to market, and then working with factories and working on patents, and trying to understand how financial institutions work, and all of that sort of stuff. But I am proud and pleased to say that we're still going strong 10 years later. We've got about 35 people working in our company, 35 in the team, and a factory locally making the wooden hives, and the factories up the road towards Brisbane making the flow frames themselves. And it's sort of steady as you go. So, I mean, COVID was good for us, surprisingly. Well, I was surprised. So many different things to talk about. I might get guided by your questions. But just to link back to that concern, from the very beginning, we shared the concern that people would look after their bees well. And so on our webpage, there for our customers, and some of the literature that went out with the hives was information on diseases and a real encouragement to consult local beekeepers and join local clubs. Good on your clubs. And because, as you know, beekeeping is a local activity, even here. Here I'm on the very easternmost side of Australia. We're getting a little bit of a honey flow on the coast, but it's stopped. You just drive half an hour or so inland, there's nothing at the moment. Partly because we've had a lot of rain and things are getting washed out, but also because it's going into winter. There'll be a dearth, half an hour's drive inland, whereas on the coast you get little heath, coastal heath, all sorts of plants going, and you can usually expect a bit of a flow through the winter. So why was I talking about all of that? Oh, just because beekeeping is varies so much from region to region and climate to climate. Encourage people to consult their local beekeepers. And of course they're going to have to somehow link in with beekeepers and bees just to get their bees in the first place. But we realised from our point of view, having just that information on the website wasn't enough. And we put together a separate website. It's not Flow branded, although there's a strong presence of Flow in the website, and that is called thebeekeeper.org, and that has got dozens of expert beekeepers and bee researchers from around the world talking about their favourite aspect of beekeeping and the bees, and that's put together so that it can be sequential as a course, or you can dip in and look at any of the, as I said, dozens of experts that are there. And that was another attempt to educate our customers and everyone else on bees. And so that's still going strong. And just to go on a little bit of an aside again, I think I'm already on the side. So on the more than half of the profits from that, thebeekeeper.org, go into supporting pollinator preservation and programs all around the world. There is a couple of dozen of those. That in Australia, the main one we supported was an organisation that was just fledgling, but now is on its own feet, called Bee Friendly Farming. And that organisation accredits farmers who want to plant and preserve diverse flora on their farms, so that it's a healthy environment for all the pollinators, all the native bees, and maybe the honeybees as well. And there's anyway, I'm not going to spend the time talking about those, but there's some marvellous projects. A lot of them are tree planting. There've been more than 1.5 million trees planted underneath that funding, but some are a lot more involved with that. So there we are. We've sort of launched the Flow Hive. It's selling well. We're concerned about the health of bees. We put that in our website, made up another website. But there's always this issue of, while we do encourage people to inspect the bees, if they've got a bit of honey in their top super, it's a heavy job getting that super off. It's clumsy. I have certainly tweaked my back at least once doing it, getting a super off. And so it was only within a year or two, so now 8 years ago, I started working on, there must be an easier way to access the brood. And of course, in that area, beekeepers have been trying all sorts of things for a long, long time. There are models with tripod cranes. There are models where the super slides sideways on rollers onto a table, and there was also drawers. Just to imagine a filing cabinet where a drawer can pull out, and that's the bottom brood box. And so I started making those drawer hives. I made a lot of different things, and so we've still got those early models. And I quickly realised that the super had to lift a bit. Of course, you need to crack the super anyway, otherwise the brood box is stuck there. But although sometimes the drawers, the frames themselves slid out, leaving the brood box intact. So it's just like one end of the brood box was like a drawer face. Anyway, lots of different designs. What I was finding was that no matter how carefully I did it, every time I slid those drawers open for the bees, they got cranky. They were crankier than I was used to with them. And I thought at first that was to do with the way the bees were sort of sliding over each other. I just didn't like getting rolled like that until one day I went, oh, of course. You know, I was moving sometimes the whole entrance and sometimes just inside the entrance of the hive, all of the brood frames sliding backwards. So of course the guard bees are hanging out there looking for trouble, and as soon as they sense either the whole brood box or the frames themselves are shifting, they freak out. They immediately start emitting their alarm pheromones. The whole hive goes on alert, and that's why I was dealing with cranky bees. So that was the end of that idea. But another thing that Cedar and I were thinking, Cedar started getting involved in this with me, just saying, come on, see if we can figure out a better way to get to the brood. And he said, I really like whatever we do to be transferable from hive to hive, not be, you know, with the flow frames we couldn't help it, but you've got to buy the flow frames for each single hive, which is why it didn't quite work so well for a commercial operator with 2,000 hives, but it works well for someone with 2 or 3 or whatever hives in their backyard. But for this easier way to get to the brood, it would be great if we could do something that just moved from hive to hive somehow. And it would be great if you didn't have, big hinges or plates bolted to each hive. Let's see if we can minimise. Cedar particularly wanted to make it so that when whatever gear we were going to make wasn't on the hive looked more or less the same. So we had lots of models that sort of clamped on, for example, clamped onto the hive. So that became a really, really long journey that has ended up in the super lifter that many of you know about. And I honestly thought we would be launching that super lifter like about 3 years ago. And at that 3 years ago point, we thought we'd more or less done it right. And then we realised, it's not going to work for whatever reason. I mean, it has to be as stable as possible. That was a very strong part of it. But we also thought, gee, wouldn't it be great if it could actually crack the hive open instead of you having to jam the hive tool in and lever it open, which, for someone like me, I'm handy with tools, that's okay, but for some people, I imagine jamming that hive tool in on a well-stuck, properly stuck hive is quite difficult. So we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could crack it? So we started trying to adapt the things we were building. By then we decided that swinging the super up, it was the best way to go. And we've got a debt to another local beekeeper, a guy that had about 40 hives and was a bee researcher at Southern Cross. And he used to just screw hinges to his two boxes, and he'd leave a pile of bricks beside the hive and just tip over. on sideways. He didn't mind that a bit of lighter honey tipped out. That just made it easier for him. And anyway, we decided no, tipping off to the side isn't go. We want to tip over to the back or to the front so that the frames stay in the vertical plane. They don't go flat, if that makes any sense there. So that's what we were working on, and I started trying to make all these different spikes and wedges that jammed in between the brood box and the super to sort of crack it open. But finally, we just started experimenting with, well, can you just do it with leverage? And can the screws that we're using to fix the hive, to fix the apparatus to the hive, can they handle the forces involved in cracking a hive apart? Because they're pretty significant. So, yeah, it took a long time. And finally, well, only earlier this year we felt we were ready to take it to the market. And a bit of a, what do you call it, a quiet launch compared to the launch of the flow frames. And, but yeah, the Superlift is selling well and we're getting lovely feedback. And every now and then there's a glitch. Because I think it's a little... It's not necessarily an intuitive bit of kit. It's sort of, at first when you see it, we can go, wow. You know, we've seen experienced beekeepers be quite surprised by how it works. And so, anyway, the glitches have been one or two out of thousands and thousands, so that's not too bad. And now we're tying it back to now it's easier to inspect your hives. Now it's easier to look after the health of your hives because the lifting won't bust your back, the lifting is possible. So somehow that all ties together for me. The wanting to make beekeeping accessible for people, no matter their strength and physique, and we seem to have managed that. So that I don't even keep an idea of time. So here we are, half an hour or so in, and we've got at least another half an hour for questions and so on, and you've sent some. So if it's all right with you, I'll go through those questions, and then if you have some more, please, we'll talk some more. And the first question, if I've got all of this right, how would you recommend beekeepers deal with their flower hive honey harvesting frames while varroa treatments are in? Okay, so as you know, we're new to varroa in Australia, and we do have varroa now at our office hives and at Cedars hives, but there's some other yards that haven't yet, so it's early days on, and the varroa counts we're getting are like 4 or 5 in an alcohol wash of 300 bees. So they're low, although one of my sons who has bees in, not that far away from us, half an hour's drive, he got 300 varroa in one, like basically one per bee in a wash the other day, and lost one of his hives. So he was shocked, and we were too, because it seemed, for all of the colonies we have, it seems to be moving in sort of slowly. But we do know that there's these things called mite bombs, which is, I didn't know this before varroa hit Australia, but in general you can say there's around 100 feral hives per square kilometre in Australia. Now, I still find it hard to believe that number, but that's what the Department of Primary Industry in New South Wales is telling us, sometimes 120. Anyway, a lot of feral hives. And of course they're not being looked after, they're not being treated. Varroa will build up in those, and then those hives will collapse, and all of the somewhat healthy bees that can still fly just go out and find other hives. And that's where I think what happened to my son, said his brother, he's just got, his hives got bombed from maybe more than one feral hive, and so all of a sudden Yeah, he's got, well, he's lost one hive and he's treating the others. So now where are we? We're on treating. So that preamble was all about, I would never consider myself a grower expert at this stage. I've got a lot to learn. And you probably know there's a couple of organic treatments, or so-called organic, formic acid, oxalic acid, and then there are miticides. So those are the sort of chemical, if you like, treatments, or and then there are physical treatments and so on, things you can do, brood breaks and so on. And you in South Australia have a decent brood break over winter. We don't here, so we have to create artificial ones. However, our Department of Agriculture, the DPI, is saying these first year or two, it's going to be crazy with those feral hives collapsing, and you're just going to have to treat. And you probably have to use a variety of the treatments available, the miticides from the chemical companies, as well as oxalic or formic acid. So, having said that, I now can't. Formic acid, you can leave your honey on, but people don't. I mean, we have in some cases and have not in others, but there's formic acid is, well, it's an insect. It's particularly present in ants and so on. I still think you're putting it in high concentrations. I'd be surprised if you didn't taste it in your honey, but we haven't got that far yet. This is very, very early days for us. So you're asking someone that's still learning, and basically I would follow the advice with whichever product you're using. You're shutting down your hives for winter. You'll be pulling the honey super off, and whatever honey's there, you know, maybe you're leaving a box on for overwintering for your colonies, and pulling the queen excluder out so that the colony can climb up through the honeycomb. So in that case, as I understand it, it's very, very good to treat at the end as your bees go into winter, so there's a low mite load over winter. I haven't studied that so much. Well, I've read about it, but when we're in a different position here, we, you know, as I said, in the coast, we'll still get some honey, and depending on the weather, really, it'll stay warm enough. But actually, we've had a couple of months of wetness up here, and that's not great for the honey flow, for the nectar. The nectar keeps getting washed out. That's if the plants flower at all. So, to be safe, I would take the super off. Any honey that you're going to want to eat, I would take that off during treatment, and that's particularly easy as you're shutting down for winter. If you're going to treat again in spring, maybe before you put the super on, this is where you're going to learn about that, you know, so in some ways better than me for your climate. So definitely with the miticides, the commercial miticides, you would take your super off. You could, with the flow hive, just harvest all of your honey if you know, if you're at the beginning of spring and you know more's coming in, if you're on a flow, treat, and then, you know, I think I'd take the super off. But the marvellous thing about beekeeping is every beekeeper does it a different way, and there will be beekeepers argue about all of that. And so I reckon be cautious at first and get the feel of it, which is what we're doing. We're also investigating all different ways of what other possibilities are there. So Sia and I had heard from some beekeepers in New Zealand that ozone, I'm sure all of you have heard of ozone. It's oxygen usually sits around 2 molecules joined together, that's O2. But ozone is O3, there's 3 joined together. It's not as stable and will readily react with things more readily than oxygen will. And so we heard that ozone pumping ozone into a hive can kill off the varroa. The varroa are more vulnerable to it than the bees. Well, we've been mucking around with that for a few weeks now and got nowhere. So we pretty much dropped that idea, even though it was exciting to think it might work. But that's just an example of us saying, well, you know, what's the range of possibilities? How can we lend a hand in this situation? I'll talk a little bit more about the alcohol wash or the soapy water or sugar shake in a little while if you like. But meanwhile, I'll go on to the next question, having given a hopeless answer to the first one. Are we seeing any unique differences with bees managing the varroa and flow hives compared to other hive designs? The general answer to that's no, except that you can take your honey off and perhaps treat. So when you're treating, you do want a concentration there. You don't really want an empty box, whether it's an empty flow box or conventional. There, it's just more space for that vapour to sit, and you want it concentrated. So generally, you're going to be taking the super off. So in that case, you know, the flow super doesn't really make any difference at all. But what does make a difference is the super lifter, because it's so much easier to inspect, and it's very easy to just lift and put in the treatment if you decide to do that. So not so much the flow hive itself, but certainly the super lifter is handy. All right. Are there any specific marketing campaigns? Yeah, directed at flow hive owners. Yeah, promoting the importance of regular bee inspections, especially with varroa. Yeah. We've recently, emailed customers in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland with advice recommending, it's been, recommending an alcohol wash every 3 or 4 weeks now. In my experience already, and I remember we've just had this a couple of months, I would expect more often than that. But perhaps that often is enough, but as soon as you've got varroa, there's the possibility that in this period, as varroa gets established in Australia, you're going to get mite bombed, and if you only inspect every 4 weeks, you could miss it. And I think that's what happened to my son. So I would be saying, keep a good eye on your hives and wash every 2 weeks, alcohol wash. Maybe that's too much, Anyway, it's a bit like if you're in contact with your neighbours, if you're sharing information and suddenly varroa's in your area, that's when you really start paying attention to that. We do have a page on our website with information on monitoring and treating, and we will keep communicating about it, particularly if Sarah and I find out something useful. Where I'm going to go now is a bit controversial. The Department of Agriculture has been really trying to get people to do alcohol washes and do them regularly. And they have been saying 2 weeks is good, 2 or 3 weeks. There's another way to, there's several different ways to do this monitoring, and one is using CO2. So that's the CO2 you can get in soda cycles, what they're called soda streams, and you can get them in those little bottles. And if you put bees in a container and spray in the CO2, they get knocked out, they're anaesthetised. And not only that, but the varroa tend to fall off them. They don't... The reason this is controversial is because the Department of Agriculture, the DPI in New South Wales, just wants uniformity, doesn't want to make things complicated and give too many options, it just wants people to test, and that's really understandable. And I don't want to undermine that. I just want to say that Cedra and I have been experimenting with CO2, and it seems to be effective in gauging the number of mites that you have. and you don't kill those bees, therefore you can do a larger sample. You don't need to sample just a third of a cup. You can sample a couple of cups or half your hive if you want, because the bees wake up again. And by mistake once, when we were experimenting this, we anaesthetised the queen, and we thought, oh boy, wonder how she's going to go. But she was, she's laying again. So as far as we know, and we've yet to do some more experiments on, say, anaesthetising a whole hive, well, a few of them, and then seeing how they perform compared to their sister hives and so on. We've still got to do that. So far we haven't detected any problem with it. But the idea is, well, you can get a larger sample and you don't have to kill them. And it's just as easy as an alcohol wash, and you're not running the risk of setting yourself on fire with your smoker and your methylated spirits and everything. Anyway, so that's one of the experiments we're doing, and when we're more confident with it, we will put information up on the website about that, probably with a bit of disgruntlement from our DPI, or maybe they'll come around. The last question, excuse me, I have to just scroll it up. I'd like you to comment, one of my, oh yes, I read this before. So, I don't know if this is Bob that's written this one, but what he does in terms of closing down for the winter is turns the flow cells into open mode and puts them in an extractor, spins the honey out, and returns the stickies to the hive to allow the bees to clean up the last bit, and then stores them. So that's a method of cleaning up your frames and your super to store over winter, which is a good thing to do. I am puzzled by the spinning them in the extractor, because we do this, we have done the same thing, and I've talked to many beekeepers in Europe as well, America, who they'll harvest all of the flow super. They're intending to take it off and store it for the winter. They'll harvest and either they figured it out for themselves, or with our advice, they leave them open, as Bob said, and rather than close them again into the cell closed. And that means the bees will tend to lick them clean in that, because they're cracked. They're not proper cells anymore, and any honey that the bees do lick off them, they'll store in other parts of the hive. Of course, after a while, like if you leave them like that in a hive for 4 or 5 days, they might be desperate to store some honey, and they'll start putting it back in these cracked open flow frames. So we haven't needed to use the spinning extractor to get the last of the honey out of the frames. The honey, honey's an incredible thing in that, if you have a jar of honey and you tip it around, and therefore it's thick over the walls of the jar, then you just sit the jar there. Over time, the honey will flow down and just sit at the bottom, and there'll be hardly any, like a molecule thick honey on the edge of the jar. That's what honey will do. So the same with the flow frames. They're designed not to catch any honey anywhere, and so that if you leave them open long enough, all of the honey will drain out, except the tiny bit that's, I don't know how many molecules thick it is sitting on the surface, and that's the bit that the bees can pick out with their tongues. So that's my comment with that. It's a great idea to harvest the honey, leave the cells open. If you want to spin them in your extractor. I mean, just to go back to this spinning in the extractor thing, I have put flow frames in an extractor for a completely different reason. And that was when we were working with the University of Queensland, looking at the taste of honey from flow frames compared to the taste of honey that had been decapped with a hot knife and spun. And that research was done 7 years ago now, and so to try and mimic, so we had exactly the same honey for this tasting panel and for the mass spectrometer they use to analyse the honey, we we did decap. We took flow frames that were fully capped and so on, decapped them with the hot knife, and put them in the extractor and spun them out, just as in the question. But they didn't fit very well in the extractor. They wouldn't fit in the baskets that normally fit a frame. They're a little bit bigger, so we ended up using zip ties and all sorts of things to try and get the frames to sit there while we spun them out. Anyway, so it can be clunky to try and spin out flow frames, and I don't think you need to. They'll drain themselves. But yes, it is good to have clean, empty, dry frames ready for spring. And some people, that's enough to just get the bees to clean them up, to get that final bit out. And other people like to give them a hot wash with hot water, rinse them out, dry them out thoroughly, and then store them. But that's what beekeepers. Everyone does it differently. Yeah. So that's their long-winded answers. And now we're sort of an hour into the talk. Would you like to ask me some other questions?
Anybody got questions for Stuart?
Or perhaps you should, you might not have a question, you might want to tell me to lift my game somehow.
No, not at all. That was amazing. I'll come in that way. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm Ramona. I would like to ask you if you do entire hive with that some kind of a gas to kill the varroa mites, will they fall somewhere down that you can collect them all, or how you clean the hive from them to not stay back in the hive any of them of the bees or something?
I'm afraid the sound isn't good enough. I couldn't understand that. I'm sorry.
I'll try and translate. Is that better, Stuart?
Yep.
Yes, I think I was asking where do the varroa mites go when they fall off the bees? Is that what you're asking? And how do you collect them?
Yeah, well, the varroa mite do fall off the bees in the hive, and when we were talking about the advantages, I forgot to mention that one advantage of the flow hive is that it does have the mesh floor and tray underneath. Now, of course, you don't have to have a flow hive to have that. We didn't know about that. I didn't know about that when we launched the flow hive. And we started designing, but we found that in America that's a very, very popular design, partly because it gives you lots of information about the pests, and it can also be used as a pest treatment or so for example, for us, we have a lot of trouble with small hive beetles, and the tray underneath the mesh floor with the oil in it, it seems to be mostly all you need to deal with beetles. Anyway, beetles are a whole other story. So mites will just fall off bees and find their way into the tray, and if you have a sticky mat there or just a film of oil, that will catch them. And so beekeepers, where varroa has been there for a long time, like I've talked to beekeepers from Europe and Scotland and America, and that's all they use to monitor the varroa. They don't do any alcohol washes or anything because they can just pull out the tray from beneath, have a look. It's like the varroa count's a bit high. They get used to it. I'll treat, next week or whatever. But you might also be thinking about, well, when you do the alcohol wash or the CO2 or the sugar shake, well, in that process, the mites, in the alcohol wash, they die and they fall off the bees. In the case of the CO2, it seems to knock them out as well. They go pretty dopey and they fall off the bees, but not all of them fall off. So that's why it's what you're getting when you're doing the alcohol wash or whatever is a sort of an estimate of how infected your hive is. It's not telling you exactly how many varroa there are in the hive, it's just giving you an idea. I hope that answers that. But but Varroa are a whole interesting thing in themselves. Their life cycle is extraordinary and somewhat should be illegal, really. I mean, it's sisters mate with brothers and all that sort of thing inside the cell. Anyway, yeah. You know, one thing I know, if there's keen questions, that's fine, but I was going to give a demonstration of the superlifter too, if you wish.
One more. Oh, no, you're going that for the... one more question, please, Stuart, before you do that.
Yeah.
Her question was, can we see the lifter demonstrated, please?
Okay.
Wait a minute, Stuart. Question is, when there's a very good honey flow, can you show us, put another box on the top to show us how the lifter works when it's very heavy? Have I? Oh, no, wrong. No, I haven't translated well. Oh, she's going to do it.
Hello, it's been very nice to hear you talking about the flow hive, but I'd like to know if and when here in South Australia we get another very good honey season, how are you able to put a second box on?
Yeah. Today has been actually a bit of a crazy day for me, and I won't go into that, but I've got just effectively a brood box which is empty, just screwed to my workbench here, and then a super which is full of flow frames that have been filled with concrete, and so they're plaster and concrete things. So they're flow frames mimicking the weight of a full flow frame. 3 kilos of honey plus a kilo for the frame, and so we, Cedar and I, use those to test our various models, and so I've got some of them here. And yes, I did have another box, but I've lost it. Well, it's mislated today to sit on top of it. You can't quite see there, but there's these in your kit. You get these clips. What do you call these? No, there's a proper word for these things. Little cam lock or whatever you like to call them. So that, because if you're going to tip over 2 boxes, which is, it's designed to tip over 2 full boxes, you need to, of course, click them together. The ones that are going over together. So let's have a look, and I'll sort of try and keep that question in mind as we go. So there is a big fat long screw, and those screws replace the center. They basically sit halfway up each box. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws here, and so we've taken, they have to match with flow hives, but the superlifter will work with an ordinary length stripe, in which case the screw hole might not be in exactly the right place, and you'll have to measure where these screws go. But that's all you need to do to alter your hive, is put these screws in. Yeah, where's my little camera? There it is there. So that's that. So here's the superlifter, all folded up. Cedar really loves this aspect of it where, I think he grew up with those transformer liquids that just sort of, a car turns into some sort of monster sort of thing. Anyway, so just by picking up these handles at the top, ones that I'm holding, it sort of falls into position, it falls into that position. And so this bracket here is the one, and it's got where are we? Sorry, just figuring out where the camera is. It's got a little angled slot, and that fits onto the screws. Those, I think we call them load pins or something, fits onto them on the bottom box, and that's there. The super lifter will just sit there like that, locked on to the brood box. Then those handles that I was holding turn into brackets themselves. They fold up, and they have like a keyhole shape, and that clicks onto the top, the pins in the super. At this stage, this is the magic stage. At this stage, where the next stage is actually opening the hive, cracking it, as I was saying before. So if you're at this stage and you haven't put your big gear on, or you haven't got your smoker going, it's time to do it. Of course, this is just concrete, not bees. So now, of course, this would be perhaps a bit lower. Maybe I need to. Sorry, I'll just adjust the camera a bit. If that's right. How's that? So now I'm going to lift this section here, which I can do with this sort of handle. And I don't know if you can see, but that has opened up now. So now the brood box is the white one, the super's lifted up, and at this end it's cracked open. And there'll be the queen excluder there and so on, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Now I'm going to hold up one of these arms, and this part becomes a leg, so it swings around and aims downwards, and then it has, it's extendable, so it's reached sort of pretty much the ground now, so that's a, the leg will extend, a fair way, if you need it to. So now, this is, I'm trying to see how much you can see. Not great, is it? Anyway, there's a gap there, and I don't know if you've noticed, when you lift up your super, sometimes the brood frames follow it up. The brood frames have got stuck, the bees have stuck up them. So then it's very, very easy to, now, it's just all helpful for you. It's very easy to get a hive tool in there and lever those brood frames back down into position if you need to. And then you're ready to just grasp this end and tip it over. Now, not a better weight to it, because as I said, all of these flow frames are full of concrete. But it's not as heavy. You're only lifting effectively half the weight. But if even that is a little bit difficult, then we do have handles that attach. So, there's one there, and that, it's a little bit hard to show you. This part here clicks onto the same screws in the same place, but at the other end of the hive. So here we are, clicks on. In this case, you do up a wing nut to lock it on, and then it's like lifting a wheelbarrow. It's just so easy. Does it hit the ceiling? And then it's open in the same way. So a single box you can generally lift yourself, but if you want the handles really help, if you are doing double boxes like we were talking before, if there's two full supers, you definitely need the handle, because they're heavy. But then with the handles, it does make it pretty easy. Now, there's the brood box there, you can inspect that. We do have some inspection brackets that work, that will click on even though the super lift is attached. But we haven't got them on the market yet, so I probably shouldn't even have told you about that. Anyway, inspect, find your queen, do the brood, whatever, and make sure they're healthy and just enjoy getting to know your colony. And then it's the same thing. It comes back, and you just make sure things are lined up, of course, here, just like you normally do. Then, if the bees are everywhere, you can smoke them or sweep them to get them out of the way. And now I'm going to take the weight with this of the whole thing there, so I can fold up the leg, and it folds up. And now, as slowly as you like, you can drop this back down. maybe you forgot to put the cleaning cleaner on, you're going to have to start over again. Anyway, and so then these come off. These come off, and there it is again, and then you can sort of pack it up in mid-air. Cedar likes to, but I find it a bit clumsy. It's easier to pack it up on the ground or something, but there it is. Pack it up. And so that's the demonstration. I think, we're doing all right time, aren't we? So, anything else to say about that super lifter? Yeah. Remember when I swung the leg, when I moved this leg out, there we are, one again. First thing to make sure as you lift this is that all of the pins are correctly pushed through the keyholes and the slots. That's where you can come adrift if they're not properly connected. They'll naturally want to be there, but they might have popped off or something. And the other thing to watch for is that as you bring this leg around, it's designed to tuck in hard. You don't, I don't know if you can see that, you don't want the leg sticking out like that. You want it pushed to be pretty much vertical. You can feel the stop on it. And the reason for that, is, you know, you've got this box here, and you're sort of pushing this way. So if the leg's properly tucked in, it stops the hive moving that way, which in this case is sort of backwards. I've got the super lifter on the back of the hive, and this would be the front. You can put the super lifter on either end, by the way. You can open it to the back or open it to the front. But this being tucked in is quite important. You can feel it, you know. If it's possible to just practice on empty boxes before you do your beads, I would. Yeah. So yeah, if we did that with 2 boxes, no problem. You can also do it with, say, one deep and 2 ideals, or half boxes. I'm not sure what you call them in South Australia. So you could have various size boxes, and of course, if you've got your brood here and a super there and a super there, you can just lift the top super off. Or maybe you've got 2 broods. And so you want to first lift the super off, have a look at the top one, then put it back together and lift this one, so that you've split the brood in half. If you're running 2 boxes for your brood, or 1.5 or whatever, it is adaptable. When you are doing half boxes, there are some extra tricks. I would go on our website to have a look at. It's not just. It's just the position of the screws gets a bit funny with when you're using the small size boxes. That's all.
Well, that's a wonderful explanation. Thank you, Stuart. No, I think we'll all be getting one of those. We're all getting older, aren't we? And our backs don't hold up like they used to. Another question, can you use a pressure cleaner on the flow frames?
A pressure cleaner, yeah. I use them on a flow frame, and not only that works, but I've also tried putting hot water through a pressure cleaner, and that really works. I mean, of course, getting more dangerous, but hot water of about 60 or 70 degrees really cleans that wax off, and even the front of the frame. One here. It's just a little demonstration frame. This can get all cleaned up, and how that gets grungy after a while. You know, it's just dark and stained, but the pressure cleaner works well. And the next thing I'm going to try, but I haven't yet, is like a big plastic tub that will hold the whole flow frame, put hot water in it, and so put the flow frame under the water, and then pressure clean under the water. And I realised I can pressure clean under the water because I found I could do that with a swimming pool. I didn't realise you can just poke your pressure cleaner into water, doesn't worry it at all, and it still is working. So that's the next thing I want to try, just because it might not splash as much when you're pressure cleaning a flow frame. When you're pressure cleaning one of those, they're just, there's wax and water going everywhere. It's a messy business. So I was thinking about the next stage. Could we do it underwater and make less of a mess? I don't know yet.
Right, thank you. Good answer. More questions? Oh, they're all coming now. Hope you've had dinner.
Oh, it's been a funny sort of day, but I'm okay.
Oh, good.
Hello. I think you mostly answered the question, but I recently got a second-hand flow from a gentleman who retired from beekeeping. I don't know the history of the hive and the colony that has been in there. I would like to do a proper cleaning, but I don't know how, and if there is any chemical can go through the flow flame, or is there any way I can clean it properly? And then I have another question is, how often do you clean the flow frame?
Okay. I didn't catch that last sentence. How often?
How often, yes.
I mean, you don't. The bees will generally keep it clean, but it does get more and more stained, and to a certain extent there's more and more bits of wax build up. But just one of the important things with the flow frame, this is just a demonstration one, it's half size, is, okay, so you've opened it and now, I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, this is cracked open. When you close it again, you put the key in the top slot. Make sure you leave that key in, press down for, I would say, at least a minute. If you're not in a hurry, 5 minutes. And the reason for that is because there is all sorts of wax there, even some propolis in the frame the bees have left there. And if you just quickly sort of go click like that and then pull the key out, you know, wax moves slowly. It's going to take time for what we call the blades, the pieces of the flow frame, to align themselves back into exactly the right position. There are little stops there that line everything up, but if there's bits of wax and maybe honey and stuff on those stops, then it just takes a minute or so for the pressure of this key in that closing the frame's position to just push it all back into place. That's quite important. But generally, you know, even if it is a grungy old frame, if you do that after your harvest, the frames will return to the correct position. It's nicer to have them clean, and we were just talking about pressure cleaning. But generally I leave the bees to clean them actually myself. Here in our climate, it's a damp climate, and if you leave frames out of the hive for a while, they go mouldy, they go black and mouldy very quickly, and that's why I use the pressure cleaner. I don't know if I would bother in a drier climate. I mean, I haven't lived in it, so maybe I would. But when you do get a second-hand hive, that's risky. And I'm sure there's experienced beekeepers there that would say, you don't know what you're getting. If you don't know the history of the bees, you don't know if they've... So do you have much trouble with American felt brood in South Australia? I mean, we do here.
No, no, we don't.
No, that's wonderful.
Yes, we do. Oh, wait a minute. No, different answer. Yes, we do. I'm just going to put Josh on to you. He's one of our VDOs. He can answer that one. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay.
No, absolutely. I mean, AFB is a concern which we need to be aware of. So, absolutely, when it comes to disease, spread, definitely,
Yeah. So that would be the scariest one. If you get a second-hand hive and it had foul brood, you wouldn't have a problem with mites. Mites only live on live bees and live brood. They don't live long without that. But foul brood can live for an amazingly long time in the spore, its spores can. So many years, and so that's the scary one. You can irradiate the flow frames and any other beekeeper, the whole hive, if you have irradiation facilities within reach. That's a whole other. The flow frames will only usually handle one irradiation. After that, the plastic gets a little bit more brittle every time you do it. So it depends on the level of radiation they're using in their sterilisation kit. And some, like the one we have in Brisbane, so that's a 2-hour drive for me, or 2.5 hours, is they're very sensitive, and they'll adjust. They'll put a lower level of irradiation through the hive so that it's not quite as damaging. But other places we know of just won't do it. They're saying, no, we just use the standard amount. Anyway, so irradiation is a possibility if you're worried about foul brood. You just take a risk. I mean, and it's just a risk. Yeah, I mean, you can put bees in there, look after them. You're going to have to learn to look after all the look after their health and look out for signs of American foul brood or European foul brood and other things. And so, if it turns out, you've got, well, it's not the end of the world, it's the end of that colony, but it's not the end of the world, and you've learned something. But generally, it's best to go with new gear. Of course, flow frames are expensive, so I can see the reason why you would go with a second-hand hive, and it's just a bit more of a risk. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question before I give the microphone to someone else. What would be the maximum temperature that you could use, heat temperature you could use if you had a pressure cleaner?
Well, yeah, they will handle 80, 90 degrees. They'll handle boiling actually, but they'll start to get a bit soft at that stage. Just a bit soft. It won't warp or anything. But you've got to be careful. The hotter the water, that's dangerous. Like even 60 degrees is dangerous. If you're going 80, 90, I wouldn't recommend it just because high pressure hot water, that's scary. So it's up to you. But yes, you could, I guess, put them in a tub of very hot water. I do. A good mate who's a beekeeper uses an urn. He's got a big urn and dips them in that, and then just sort of shakes them out, and that's enough to clean them for him. And I should ask him now what he gets that urn, because of course urns will go to boiling. I'll do that. I'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you, Stuart. Another question? Could you stand up so we can get you on the...
Hi there, my name's Kim, and I was just referring back to the CO2. Commercial growers working out of glass houses are upping the amount of CO2 to increase plant growth. I'm just wondering, have you done any work, CO2 flows virtually full time in your hives to up the CO2 level?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've just a couple of days ago read about some research that still was carried on. I just hadn't seen it before. It was 2 years ago, where hives that had been overwintered, they upped the level of CO2 to about 8%. So normally it's a fraction of a percentage CO2 in the air, and it can go up to 1 or 2% in a hive naturally because the bees are exuding CO2. Anyway, they upped it to 8%, and we're finding that was killing a significant amount of varroa. Something like 80% were dropping off over the winter period. So that is just straight research. It hasn't developed into any practice as far as I know, but it's sort of interesting. So far we're just using the CO2 to knock out the bees instead of, as an alternative to alcohol wash, and we're just experimenting with that. So we're not experimenting with, killing the varroa really, although that'll be an interesting avenue. And we certainly haven't experimented with plants, but it's an interesting, it's a great question, and there's as soon as you start experimenting, you realise, well, there's 5 other experiments you could run, and there's more than what we do. It's tremendous, really.
Yeah, no worries, well, I'll join you in researching this one.
Yeah.
Thank you. One more up the back here. Can you see us? Can you see us, Stuart, or not?
I can sort of see you as a crowd. Oh, look at that. Yep.
Here's another question.
Hello. Getting back to the temperature of the flow frames, can they go into the freezer?
Yeah. They certainly can, and that's a great way if you want to make sure they're not. You might have some wax moth, or I mean, once again, that's usually the brood frames, but for us, small hive beetle is a problem, and so if we want to kill off the beetle and the grubs, if a hive's got too infested, we'll just pop them in the freezer, and it's no problem at all. So it's just the flow frames are made of polypropylene. It's a very, very common plastic here, so it has that. It's no problem to freeze it, and it melts at about 160 degrees Celsius, so it's well above boiling point, but it will get a bit soft at boiling point.
Oh, there we go. We've got an observation hive here, Stuart. So we've just opened it up, taken its towel off, and all the bees are crawling around. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
More questions? Any more questions? Oh, another one. Here we go.
How willing are the bees actually to enter the flow hive super?
Yeah. We find some colonies, most colonies no problem, but some colonies really reluctant, and it's sort of the same as with plastic foundation. In fact, we did experiments looking at bees' enthusiasm, and of course they like fully drawn honeycomb the most, and then wax foundation, then the flow frames, then plastic foundation was the sort of preference. So for those colonies, there's a few different things going on when a colony doesn't seem to want to go up into a flow super, and one is that maybe there's not much of a flow on, and so they're not looking to store honey. But sometimes there's a flow on, and they're just for some reason not going up in there. And so then some people just rub in burr comb from the same hive, just wax the honey, rub it into a few frames, and that gets the bees interested. Or actually painted the beeswax, melted beeswax. But another method is to take the flow super, put that on the baseboard and put the brood box on top with your queen excluder in between. So then the queen and the brood are up on top. She still can't get out, or she can't get out at all, but you're just doing that for a week or so, and therefore the bees have to come in the entrance and they'll crawl up through the flow frames and to get to the brood. And that gets them familiar with them, and that technique I've never done. I just haven't needed to, but a beekeeper near me just swears by it. He teaches he's a teaching beekeeper, does little workshops and so on, and he says every time he's done that it's worked, so I believe him, but beekeeping stories. I mean, some people, it's not a good idea to put honey from another hive into your beehive because of the possibility of foul brood and things. But some people sprinkle a bit of sugar or whatever on the flow frames. A little bit trickier. I wouldn't do sugar syrup because that dries to a very hard sort of glue. Really, it might jam things up. But yeah, a bit of honey and wax is pretty easy. Usually there's a bit of burr comb when you open up a hive, and there's a bit of burr comb around the brood here and there, and you can rub that into the flow frames.
Thank you, Stuart. Any more questions? Oh, I think you've answered everybody's questions, Stuart. Everybody right? I just wanted to let you know that we are now, BSSA is now a Flow affiliate, which as a member benefits, we have an exclusive 8% discount on eligible Flow products, and every purchase earns the BSSA 10% store credit to benefit members. So thank you for that, Stuart. Thank you for allowing us to be part of to be a Flow affiliate. So on that note, I think we would like to say thank you very much to Stuart. I've never heard them so quiet.
Well, probably because I'm numbered. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, and no doubt we will be in touch again. Thank you, Amanda, for organising for Stuart to be able to come on. We thought we were going to have you here at one stage, didn't we? But then it didn't work out.
I do have friends I'd love to come and see in South Australia. We were. My wife and I were going to come down in March. It didn't work out. And next year, we'll see.
Yes, all right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for demonstrating the lifter. I think that I've only got 2 hives, but I think that looks really good for the aging back. So thank you for the evening. Have a good evening, and we will keep in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stuart.
All the best, everyone.
Okay, bye. Right. Oh, that was amazing. I knew very little about flow hives before tonight, really, and although a lot of you have got them, and I talked to Amanda about hers, but I've never been really able to work out how they go. But no, very interesting tonight. So raffle draw now. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to get Anne, who has supplied the lifter tonight, to draw the raffles for us. Because it's 9 o'clock, we're just going to draw you out, and then all the raffles are at the back of the room. And if your name is called out, just wander up and pick whatever prize you would like. So would you be able to, is Anne going to do it at the back? Yep. All right, I'll go to the back, and so you might just have to listen for your name to be called out. And then after the raffle, we're just saying, don't rush off, grab a cuppa, have a chat, learn something new and meet new people. Have a look at the Flow Hive lifter, which is at the back of the room. Come and try hands-on experience with the Flow and Langstroth hives. The observation hive is here. Thank you, Bob, for bringing your bees in tonight. They look a bit slow, a bit tired. So come and have a look at the observation hive from Bob. The library, come and see Sue and David and Pam. They're over here. And I was lucky enough to be given about 10 beautiful new books from a beekeeper who's no longer in beekeeping. So Sue's going to have, next month they'll be available. And we have got honey sales on the back table. And if you look at the corks and think, oh, someone's had a lot of wine, you can put corks on your, wherever you have your water source. So if you've got a bird bath or just buckets of water or whatever, you can put the corks on for the bees to land on and have a drink. So feel free just to take some corks. A lovely big basket of corks. All right, Anne, I will bring the microphone up to you, and we'll start our raffle. And then, and we do need to just stack our chairs to the side of the room, if you could, when you hop up, 6 deep. Okay, here we go, Anne. You do. First one.
Anne Preston. New 88.
Annie, is that... Annie? I think she's talking. Annie? Oh, Anne. Okay. Yes, it's an one, U88. Next one. So please come and help yourselves. Here we go, Anne. That's the one. Yes, so feel free to help yourself.
U58, Barb.
Barb, U58, Barb. Oh, that's Barb. That's our person at the desk here. Right. Next one.
Orange X6, D. Anthony.
Right. Here he comes. Fantastic. Next one.
Grey L72, Adrian Eggle.
Yes, Adrian, lovely. Come on up. Oh, round over there. Oh, you can go and pick there.
Grey L61, Tim.
Well done, Tim.
Red H41, Russell.
Yes. Have we got Russell? Oh, good. Yes, Russell's coming. Right, we've still got 5. Still got 5 to go. Next one. 4 to go. Okay.
Grey again, L81, Sam. Borman.
Lovely.
Orange U67.
Ooh.
Chris, is it, or?
U67.
U67.
It's very hard to read the writing. U67, orange. No. Okay, we'll put that one. Keep going.
Green Q78, Lindy.
Lindy? Oh, yes, yes, Lindy.
Red H49, Sue Speck.
Our librarian. And, oh, no, she doesn't want that one. She bought the persimmons. Do you want the back, Sue? Oh. And no, one more. Thank you, Sue.
Grey L83, JP.
Is that John Patterson? Yes, it is. Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much. Okay. So please feel free to stay. We might pack up our chairs. Josh is at the back of the room, our VO that comes to each meeting. So if you've got any questions, please see Josh. He's got his Purser thingy on. And feel free to come and try the super lifter and wander around Langstroth and Flow Hive. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Thank you for coming.